At the time of Order 66 and Operation Nightfall, the Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi was located on Utapau, but even as he was being shot down by his 212th Battalion, this was just the beginning of his nightmares. After escaping death at the hands of his clones, Obi-Wan piloted the starfighter of General Grievous, and using the emergency code 913, he would eventually find the safety of Bail Organa. It was on the Tantive 4 did Obi-Wan finally believe that Anakin was among the betrayed Jedi, but the truth was considerably worse. Deciding to take the risk of returning to Coruscant and recalibrate the beacon at the Jedi Temple, Yoda and Obi-Wan battled the 501st Legion, and once they were defeated, they examined the bodies of the Jedi to find the wounds inflicted by lightsabers. When Obi-Wan told Yoda that he would find out who had caused the massacre, Yoda responded that the Jedi Master already knew. Nevertheless, once Obi-Wan recalibrated the beacon and warned all Jedi to stay away, he ignored Yoda's warning, and believing that he deserved the pain, he would enter a code into the holoscanner. Obi-Wan would see a variety of footage, from the massacre of younglings in Cin Drallig in the Room of 1,000 Fountains, to the kneeling of Darth Vader, and finally his allegiance to the Sith. Obi-Wan struggled to comprehend what had happened to Anakin, and he desperately asked Yoda to send him to face Palpatine, and the Grandmaster refused. But what if Obi-Wan never watched the security recordings? Would the Jedi still enter into exile? Obi-Wan knelt down to examine the body of a fallen Padawan, and when he turned it onto his side, he saw burns that only a lightsaber could create. As he asked Yoda who could have committed such an atrocity, the distinct curve on the burns was all too familiar, and it started to sink in that Anakin had done this. Moving to the holocom center, Obi-Wan refocused his mind to recalibrate the beacon, but such was his emotional distress, he crushed a holoprojector, earning a scolding from Yoda. The Grandmaster ordered for Obi-Wan to go and find his fallen apprentice, and now he regretted not seeing the footage, as it might have given him a clue of Anakin's location. His first instinct was to go to Padme's apartment, considering Anakin's not-so-subtle efforts to hide his marriage, but it was the destruction of the holoprojector that gave him another idea. Whilst most of the temple had been destroyed, the war room remained largely intact, and using a different Jedi code, he tries to reach out to the former Padawan Ahsoka Tano. The Padawan had just survived betrayal by a 332nd Company, and she was surprised that both Obi-Wan and Yoda had also survived, but the knowledge that Anakin had turned to the dark side overwhelmed any light. With the escape of Maul, Ahsoka had little insight into Anakin's location, but she thought that if the Jedi could get to Palpatine's office, they could access the holoprojector in his private suite. Obi-Wan advised Ahsoka to return to Coruscant, not for the Jedi, but for Padme, whom Obi-Wan knew was in the latter stages of pregnancy. Having just witnessed the deaths of dozens of clone troopers, Rex wanted to stay undercover and save the lives of other clone brothers, but he allowed Ahsoka to pilot the Y-Wing to a safe rendezvous point, where Bail Organa had arranged transport onto the planet. By the time Ahsoka had made it to Coruscant, Yoda's normally unflappable patience was growing thin, as he knew Palpatine was swiftly securing his control, and the fallen Anakin would be on the move. He knew this, as in the time waiting for Ahsoka, Yoda bravely left the confines of the quiet temple, and with the clone troopers and especially the Coruscant Guard all monitoring the surface of the planet, he had to be careful. With his cloak over his head, the Grandmaster moved like a shadow, and ascending to the summit of the Republic Executive Building, the window had yet to be repaired. The Emperor had not thought that there would be survivors, so there were only 2 stationed Coruscant guards, and Yoda comfortably force-pushed them into the wall and accessed the Emperor's old recordings. Watching the footage that Obi-Wan refused to believe even existed, Yoda now knew more about the clones and the weapon turned against them, but also about Anakin's mission to Mustafar. When the clones started to awaken, Yoda quietly returned to Bail Organa's Cantham house, and once Ahsoka arrived, they set about trying to save the galaxy. As the former Padawan was tasked with protecting Padme and the potential children, Obi-Wan was dispatched to Mustafar to see if he could find his wayward apprentice, and Yoda searched for Palpatine. As the Grandmaster watched Obi-Wan leaving Grievous's starfighter, Yoda was about to travel to the Senate chamber when a booming voice echoes across the city. The Vice Chair and now Grand Vizier Mas Amedda was declaring the fall of the Jedi Order, and he started to personally incinerate lightsabers. As Yoda watched this unfold on a large holoscreen, he considered that the Jedi were too late, but he had to repair his own mistakes caused by the hubris of his order. The Grandmaster silently returned to the crumbling Jedi temple, and when he saw more lightsabers being burned, he saw both Palpatine and his new apprentice. His first instinct told him that Obi-Wan should turn back from Mustafar, but the Jedi needed to know more about Palpatine's plans, considering the depth of his manipulations. Yoda regrettably could not do anything about the Sith for now, but the more positive news was that Ahsoka guided Padme to Bail Organa's ship in time, and she gave birth to Luke and Leia whilst remaining alive. The fact that children were strong Force sensitives was not a surprise, but with the claws of the Empire on the remaining Jedi, the exhausted Padme is taken to Alderaan with her children. The Senate had wanted to see Anakin again and fight the Empire, but the Jedi and Bail Organa take matters out of her hands, and once Obi-Wan arrived on Mustafar, he discovered the remains of the Separatists strewn across the war room. The Jedi Master forced himself to watch the previous transmissions, and though not as traumatic as he presumed the footage of the temple to be, he suffered when he heard Anakin following Palpatine's orders. When Yoda confirmed from Coruscant that Anakin had returned to the planet, Obi-Wan decided to investigate Mustafar for more signs of the Emperor's activity. With some of the native Mustafarians examining the war room, Obi-Wan took the starfighter across the Obsidian mountain ranges, and he found an abandoned mining facility that echoed with its dark side energy. When Obi-Wan landed beside it, he now could sense pain and suffering, so after defeating the droid guards, he found a number of Jedi younglings and even younger babies, and this reminded him of Cad Bane's kidnappings in the Clone War. The Jedi Master sent the encrypted data from the secret base back to Rex, and with the help of R2-D2, whom had left Anakin after his fall, the astromech discovered activity going back more than 30 years. Beginning with ownership by the Damask Holdings, visitors included the likes of Darth Maul, the Black Sun, and most importantly Darth Sidious. Though being a Sith Lord was not a crime, his role in the kidnapping of children and using funds attached to the intergalactic banking clan was one of many pieces of evidence the Jedi needed against the Emperor. But even with the discovery of the facility, Obi-Wan still felt darkness in his surroundings, and returning to the site of Anakin's Separatist massacre, he saw a cave buried beneath the volcanic surface. As he approached the cave, he saw a group of architects examining the carvings on the inside and the area around it, so he assumed that the Sith were hoping to make this planet one of their strongholds. Whilst the Jedi made his return to Coruscant, Bail Organa was busy building further incriminating evidence against Palpatine. With the help of Yoda, Organa gathered senators who were part of the delegation of 2000, who had made some moves to remove Palpatine's emergency powers. The likes of Senator Chuchi and Fang Zar all presented suggestions on Palpatine's devious activity, mainly consisting of treason. This included talking to the likes of Chancellor Valorum, who was overthrown by Palpatine before the Clone War, and has recent suspicions on the intentions of Naboo's blockade. Even though Padme was recovering on Alderaan, she still managed to utilise her connections to the world of Scipio to obtain a record of the IGBC's transactions before they were arrested near the end of the Clone War. Organa established links between the war and the transactions, but to have definitive evidence, they decided to travel to Dooku's home planet. Whilst the Jedi were preparing for a counterattack, Palpatine and Vader were in the Emperor's office and in a ferocious duel. Vader had not relented in his pursuit of Padme Amidala, who he believed was going to die in childbirth, but the Emperor continued to deflect the questions until now. His lightning attack coursed through the body of Vader and told him to forget about Padme, as this was a weakness for the Sith and would inhibit his rapidly increasing power. But truthfully, Palpatine was concerned. If the Senate had survived the chaos of the end of the war, her offspring would surely be powerful in the Force, and should they fall into Jedi hands, his place could be under threat. As his apprentice was too closely connected to the mission, he delegated his most loyal clone troopers, who were soon to be replaced, to find the missing senator dead or alive. Yoda and Obi-Wan, on the other hand, had managed to make it to Sereno, but already there was Imperial activity on the planet. Nevertheless, these Jedi Masters had not survived Order 66 by luck, and docked by the jungle behind Dooku's castle. The two Jedi scaled the cliffs supporting the castle, and as Imperial cargo ships zoomed overhead, they used their lightsabers to cut through the back of the castle. Above the cells and dungeons, the Jedi gained unrestricted access to Dooku's archives, and transferred more incriminating evidence against Palpatine back to Senator Organa. But as they are about to leave, they hear the footsteps of Imperial clone troopers outside, and they realise they must have triggered the alarms. Activating the turbo lift behind Dooku's console, the Jedi made their escape and are now a step closer to saving their order.